Time now for the Nick Hart Show, a special sports production of the Wabash Valley College Radio, TV, and Digital Media Department, presented by 89-1 The Bash and the Gibson Southern Titan Football Boosters, including A&B Logistics, LLC, A&T Concrete Supply, Absolute Custom Machine, LLC, Angermeyer Electric, Brian Stevens Homes, Davis Brothers, Daylight Land Management, Daywig Meats, Dillbeck Properties, Diversified Instruments, DuBois County Garage Doors, Duke Energy, ERA First Advantage, Rodney Langford, First Rate Real Estate, Kent Kleiman, Foster Construction, Fryman Land Service LLC, by Fort Branch Car Wash, Gady Oil, the grandparents of Owen O'Neill, Grassmaster Sod Farms, Hobstadt Family Dentistry LLC, Hobstadt Summerfest, Heritage Petroleum LLC, Hillside Gardens, HMC Gears, Image Inks, in memory of Darwin and Eric Callis, in memory of Zach Bailey, Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance Nathan Belote, Jackson Seed Service, Jarbo Tax Service, JJ's Concrete Construction LLC, JMCO Technologies, Johnson Commercial Mowing Incorporated, K&K Excavating Incorporated, Casey Fuquay State Farm Agent, Kathy Solomon Photography, Key Construction Incorporated, Kissel Wagner Survey LLC, by Kirkwood Family Dentistry, Little Titans Daycare, Little Miracles Learning Center, Lowry Ag Company LLC, by Marcus Jungan State Farm Insurance, Melcor Custom Cabinets, MyTech Systems, by Murphy's Stump and Grind LLC, National Vet Health, Owensville Auto Body, Parker Excavating, by Perfect Climate Heating, Air, and Plumbing, Cole Concrete Construction, Prodigy Mold and Tool Incorporated, Pro Rehab, Rawhide Golf Supplies LLC, Rooted in Him, Sandy's Pizza and Mini Storage, Shearer Monument Works, by Scotty's Lawn Equipment, by Senior Tequila, Solman Family Farms LLC, South Gibson Titan Lacrosse, Steve Faulkner Chevrolet, by Stodgel Funeral Home, by Tai Chow, The Brass Ring, Titan Construction, TYFL, the Titan Youth Football League, by United Fidelity Bank, Value Built Homes, Bernardo Construction, Vomac Truck Sales and Service Incorporated, by We Simply Clean LLC, and by Young's Auto Body. The Nick Hart Show, a special sports production of the Wabash Valley College Radio, TV, and Digital Media Department and 89.1 The Bash.
And we are back here on 89.1 The Bash with another edition of the Nick Hart Show. Coach, I mean, this is going to be an awesome episode. We're coming off an incredible week.
Yeah, great game on Friday night. Great win, obviously, but just a really good high school football game. Both teams played hard and played really well, and answered punches. It was just back and forth. I thought it was a great high school football game, and really proud of our guys for finding a way to come out with a win.
A few years ago, when I was in college calling, Gibson Southern games, I told myself when Gibson Southern came back and beat South Warren at home, I was like, man, that's the greatest high school football game I've ever watched. And then this past Friday was like, wow, I've been lying to myself. This is the best football game, I've ever had the chance to call. But, with it being one of the most exciting games we've seen all season, walk us through what you were feeling on the sideline. I mean, it was a back and forth battle. What were you feeling on the sideline?
Yeah, not a lot. You're just trying to, get ready, for the next thing that's coming. It's just kind of I think a tale of two halves, for both teams. I thought, the defenses kind of won the first half. And then, there's obviously a lot more scoring in the second half. But, I thought for us, it was just a great team performance across the board, multiple guys making plays. I thought, I told him this after the game, I thought our scout team was phenomenal during the week in giving our guys a great look. We prepared so well throughout the week. So it was really, from the bottom of the roster to the top of the roster, I thought everybody put in a great week. That ultimately led to a great Friday night.
Was there a moment in the game where, like you said, it was a tale of two halves? And I mean, dude, this team in the fourth quarter, man, it was just there are so many things that we could talk about with this game. But you talked about at halftime, the first half was a defensive battle. What was your message in the locker room at halftime to this team?
Just the main thing was, I felt like the last we played in a monsoon in the regular season last year, but last year in the sectional, and the year before in the semi-state, I thought we made big runs on them in the second half, with our depth. In those two games, we just dug too big of a hole, to really take advantage of that. That was kind of our message at halftime, was kind of bringing that back up. And, we're only down 3 now. So now we got a chance to make a run at them. I thought we played well in the first half. Just a few things. We turned the ball over a couple of times. A couple of those things. We were probably, I should have called timeout on their touchdown. We had a call and they came out and empty, and we couldn't be in that call and empty, and we kind of got late to it. And I was running down to try and call timeout and didn't get it done in time. Just a few of those type of things in the first half. I thought we played well, put ourselves in a good position there heading into the second half.
A game like this takes a lot of composure from the coaching staff all the way to, like you said, the scout team, right? It's a group effort. What does that game say about the character of this team?
I think it says a lot, and I think it kind of shows why we do what we do early in the season, and going and playing some of the teams we do, and getting in some of those battles and some of those fourth quarters that, you got to try and find a way to win. It's just, I thought everybody was bought in. Not that we aren't week to week, but it was on a different level last week. And so, going in the game, you don't know what's going to happen, but I felt really good, and at peace with where we were, going into the game with what we had done throughout the week. And, I thought our kids, performed at a really high level.
Absolutely. And we're going to take a quick break here during this episode of the Nick Hart Show. When we come back, we'll talk about this offensive performance here on 89.1 The Bash.
This special sports presentation of 89.1 The Bash is made possible by A&B Logistics, LLC, A&T Concrete Supply, Absolute Custom Machine, LLC, Angermeyer Electric, Brian Stevens Homes, Davis Brothers, Daylight Land Management, Daywig Meats, Dillbeck Properties, Diversified Instruments, DuBois County Garage Doors, Duke Energy, ERA First Advantage, Rodney Langford, First Rate Real Estate, Kent Kleiman, Foster Construction, Fryman Land Service LLC, by Fort Branch Car Wash, Gady Oil, the grandparents of Owen O'Neill, Grassmaster Sod Farms, Hobstadt Family Dentistry LLC, Hobstadt Summerfest, Heritage Petroleum LLC, and by Hillside Gardens.
And we're back here on 89.1 The Bash with Coach Nick Hart. Coach, I want to start with Zach Foster. And, before, it was so ironic because I'm talking about the stats for Zach, and I'm going through, and I'm like, he just doesn't turn the ball over. He keeps it out of harm's way. He makes the safe throw. Boom. First two drives of the game, he's throwing picks. And I'm like, oh, of course it's, when a kicker or a announcer says a kicker hasn't missed a field goal, he's gonna miss the field goal kind of moment. But how was Zach able to and on top of the interceptions, it was just a really uncharacteristic first half for him. And then this second half, I think was the best half of football of the season from him. What changed for Zach from that first half into the second half?
Nothing. I mean, I thought obviously he'd like to have those two throws back. But after that, I thought he played great. Even in the first half after those two throws, and the first one I don't mind. We got a hold. We got in a 2nd and 20. He kind of got flush and he took a shot way down the field, and really it turned into a punt. And kind of gave us a chance. And it didn't work out, but it kind of turned into a punt, and I didn't think it was like the worst decision in the world. And then the next one, we had a guy on the seam, and man, it just got away from him a little bit. It sailed a little bit. So like the decision was good, and it just sailed and got away from him a little bit. And I thought after that, he really calmed down and kind of got in a groove. And like you said, I thought he was a big time X factor in the game.
And looking at this fourth quarter, and it was such a fun second half. Gibson Southern comes out, boom, 14-0 run from Gibson Southern, and then boom, 14-0 run from Heritage Hills. It was a really back and forth battle, but that fourth quarter is one of the best quarters of Gibson Southern football I've ever watched. Just how proud of you, how proud of this team were you in the way that they responded after all the game, after all these shots getting thrown at them, they were able to stay in this game and win. Just how proud of you, how proud of this team are you?
Very, very. And just like, it never changed on the sideline. They scored with 2 minutes left, and I heard multiple guys on the offenses were kind of waiting for the kickoff, like, let's go score. Let's go win it. It just, they weren't phased. I think it pays off. We were there, in a similar situation week 1, and then kind of been through that. And as we're talking about our offense, I'd be remiss not to mention our offensive line. I thought just played at an extraordinary level. The way we ran the football, I thought our offensive line, did a great job, and they got a little pressure on us a couple times in the pass game, and that was really on me. We were setting our protection a certain way, from what we kind of seen from them historically, and they obviously changed and did some stuff, and it kind of put us. We should have adjusted as the game went on, but I thought our offensive line just really played at an elite level.
And last thing I want to bring up about this offense, you brought up the rushing attack, and no Eli Foster last week. And, that was a tough blow. He was one of the team's, leading rushers outside of Zach, but no Eli Foster last week. How important is it to have guys like Tucker Deputy and like Colin Shear that can step up in games, in one of the biggest games of the season, and perform the way that they both did?
Yeah, losing Eli hurt. I thought he's played, very, very well through the first half of the season. We're going to be without him for a little bit, but and then Colin, the plan was kind of for us to, he's ran it some, but we really wanted to keep the hits off of him. As we kind of went through the regular season here, with him being so important to our defense, so. He kind of got pressed into action a little bit earlier than what the original plan was. And then, I think what's impressive about him is, you turn around, so, okay, hey, you're going to play more offense. Well, Tucker got banged up on Friday. And so, Colin ended up playing a lot more than was planned on or anticipated. And, I don't think the guy got tired the entire night. Our special teams coach was trying to get him off of a kickoff one time because, he'd been on the field so much and, he didn't want to come off. he didn't even come off of that. I thought obviously his performance, on offense and defense, spoke for itself. But on top of that, he was big for us on special teams. He didn't get gassed as the game went on, and was just huge for us.
Yeah, it's just I thought it was super impressive for this offense to just keep battling even when things weren't going their way. The turnovers happened earlier in the game. I think this team, I think it showed a lot of character in what this team can do, especially later in the season. When we get back here as a part of the Nick Hart Show, we'll talk about this defensive performance, which, yeah, you might look at the box score and say, oh, it wasn't that great of a performance, but it for sure was a great performance. We'll be back here in just a moment.
This special sports presentation of 89.1 The Bash is made possible by HMC Gears, Image Inks, in memory of Darwin and Eric Callis, in memory of Zach Bailey, Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, Nathan Belote, Jackson Seed Service, Jarbo Tax Service, JJ's Concrete Construction LLC, JMCO Technologies, Johnson Commercial Mowing Incorporated, K&K Excavating Incorporated, Casey Fuquay State Farm Agent, Kathy Solomon Photography, P Construction Incorporated, Kissel Wagner Survey LLC, by Kirkwood Family Dentistry, Little Titans Daycare, Little Miracles Learning Center, Lowry Ag Company LLC, by Marcus Union State Farm Insurance, Melcor Custom Cabinets, by Tech Systems, by Murphy Stump and Grind LLC, National Vet Health, Owensville Auto Body, and by Parker Excavating.
And we're back here on 89.1 The Bash with Coach Nick Hart. So like I said before we went to break, this defense, you would see it, and 38-34, you don't think it was a defensive battle. But like you said earlier on in the game, it was a tale of two halves. It felt like it was going to be a low-scoring game through the first half. Both teams were keeping each other in check. And it's tough to play the number one team in 4A in the first place. How did you prepare your group, your defense, for this challenge? Especially, we talked about last week's episode, they've got two SEC commits on the offensive side. How did you prepare your group for this week?
Yeah, I thought, like you said, you might see 34 points and think, but I thought our defense was exceptional because whether it was right or wrong, we executed the game plan in what we wanted to do, because I think you look at them, okay, they've got a big, strong, physical offensive line. They're very good at running the football with the quarterback and the running back. I think Ruxer, rightfully so, gets a lot of credit because of where he's going. I think the Gray kid is an excellent high school receiver. The Toller kid that plays in the slots, very good as well. So, all right, what are you going to stop? What are you going to take away? I think if you just kind of sit in your base stuff, they can go. So, like, you got to pick your poison a little bit. And we kind of came in. We wanted to try and limit the explosives as much as we could. And so that kind of led to a lot of it, and we mixed and matched some looks. But the ultimate goal was, we wanted to get help in the box and run support and try and keep them from getting their explosives that way. And then we wanted to play some off coverage and make them throw underneath. Not that they weren't capable of doing that, which they obviously were. I thought they did a really good job of that. But it was, all right, let's make them consistently throw hitches and curls and comebacks and stuff like that to try and move the ball down the field. There was times where we were trying to, get help over to Ruxer's side, and they, give them credit when they saw us doing that, they went and worked the other way with their other athletes. So, I thought Other than they hit the one post on us over the top for a big gain. I think that led to their first field goal. Other than that, I thought we did a really good job of keeping them in front of us and making them drive the football and not hit those explosive plays. And give them credit for taking what we gave them and executing it at a high level. But going in, we felt like that was our best recipe for success, and I thought our kids did an exceptional job of executing that and making them try and beat us that way.
So at quarterback for Heritage Hills is one of the most athletic players in the state of Indiana. I mean, he coming into that game, 26 total touchdowns in 5 games like that. I mean, that's just absolutely incredible. And I thought that this defense did a spectacular job of slowing down Jack Goldsberry. What goes into, preparing for a guy with the skill set of Goldsberry? Because he looked like he was, obviously a very strong athlete, but he's also a really good quarterback. I mean, he's got an arm. He loves chucking it up, especially, Tyler Ruxer, that was kind of their 1-2 combo. But you also said they've got talented receivers outside of Ruxer. What goes into preparing, especially against an athletic quarterback like Goldsberry?
Yeah, a lot of things. Like I said, I think the first thing is you don't want to give up or try and they're going to get some. You want to limit the explosives as much as you can. That's in the secondary. That's in, we worked a lot and talked a lot about the angles that we needed to take on him. We're not going to win a track meet against him. Right. So, making sure that, if I'm here and he's there, where do I need to attack? I thought, maybe in a good way, it was overcoached a little bit. I thought a couple of times maybe we could have got to him in the pocket. But you could tell our kids were so focused on, making sure they had the right angle and not letting him out that we probably didn't get there a couple of times that maybe we could have. But it was a lot of that. It's a lot of, getting hats. I thought the one thing that stood out to me about our defense on film was the pursuit that we had the entire night. When he or the running back kind of got going and, we made a cut, they broke a tackle or whatever, and they're going to make a cut. And there was multiple maroon jerseys on their way to the football. I thought we did an excellent job of that. I thought a couple times, they had a chance to kind of pop something. They made a move or whatever. And we just did an excellent job of pursuing, and making it a 5 or a 6 yard gain instead of a 50 or 60 yard gain. And so that's where I thought our defense was really exceptional on Friday.
And like we've said, we've talked about the defense. We talked about the offense. I mean, it was just such a fun game. But after break, we're going to dive in to this Washington matchup next week. The season still goes on. So make sure to stay tuned in to 89.1 The Bash, and we'll be back here in just a moment.
This special sports presentation of 89.1 The Bash is made possible by Perfect Climate Heating, Air, and Plumbing, Cole Concrete Construction, Prodigy Mold and Tool Incorporated, Pro Rehab, Rawhide Golf Supplies LLC, Rooted in Him, Sandy's Pizza and Mini Storage, Shearer Monument Works, by Scotty's Lawn Equipment, by Senior Tequila, Solman Family Farms LLC, South Gibson Titan Lacrosse, Steve Faulkner Chevrolet, by Stodgel Funeral Home, by Tai Chow, The Brass Ring, Titan Construction, TYFL, the Titan Youth Football League, by United Fidelity Bank, Value Gulf Homes, Bernardo Construction, Vomac Truck Sales and Service Incorporated, by We Simply Clean LLC, and by Young's Auto Body.
And we are back here on 89.1 The Bash with Coach Nick Hart as a part of the Nick Hart Show. So, Coach, This past week was a very emotional win. I mean, we talked about the potential emotions that could be heading into this week. How do you make sure that this team doesn't get too high after a win like this and stays focused? Because I know winning the big time games, I know what it feels like, but then you got to keep it moving. You got to keep that momentum going. How do you make sure this team stays focused on Washington?
Yeah, I think one thing, we immediately talked about after the game is, after we talked about how proud we were and it was a great win,
Right.
And stuff. But, our preparation last week and the way we practice led us to have that opportunity on Friday night. And so, my message was kind of like, you guys now have the choice with how we handle practice, moving forward and stuff. Is this going to be like our defining moment, or is this going to be a part of the story, one chapter in the book of what we do? And so, it was enjoy it this weekend. Then we get back on Monday. We got to prepare the same way that we did this past week to get ready for Friday night. And so far this week, our guys have done a great job of that. I thought we were really dialed in practice so far this week. I think we're using this big win more of like a booster than we are like a speed bump. So our guys are ready to go. And I think one big thing for us is taking care of bodies. It was a physical game. We were banged up, so we're trying to cut a few things back this week and kind of let us get our bodies back and get healed up, but also at the same time, getting ourselves prepared, for Friday night.
What stands out to you about, because I know you and the coaching staff have already watched film as well as the players, what stands out about Washington on film?
Yeah, I think they've it's a program that's continuing to improve. I thought last year, we kind of pulled away in the second half, but it was like 17-7 at halftime. I think as the season has gone on, they've improved greatly from week one to where they're at now. And that says a lot about their kids and their staff and what they're doing. Because when you don't start the year great, I think it's kind of easy just to not fold up shop, but just kind of, oh, woe is us. And they did the exact opposite. And they're coming off a big win over Boonville. They've won, they started 0-3, I think, and they've won 3 in a row. So they're playing their best football of the year right now. They got multiple weapons on offense. They do a good job at kind of getting it to different guys. They've won a lot of close football games and found a way to win. And so I think that says a lot about them and their character as well.
Coach, I'm excited. It's the last road game of the season, so I'm excited to get this road game over with and go back home. I love calling games at Gibson Southern, and I know, everybody loves a home game. So, Coach, it was a great week last week. I appreciated getting to call that game. It was awesome. My demo reel for that game is going to be awesome. So, make sure to tune in Friday as your Gibson Southern Titans will take on Washington at 6:30 p.m. So make sure to tune in to 89.1 The Bash for that, as well as another edition of the Nick Hart Show next Wednesday here, once again on 89.1 The Bash. Coach, coming off a great win. I'm hoping that we can get another win this week.
Yeah, that sounds like a great plan.
All righty, Coach. We'll see you on Friday. Once again, make sure to tune in to 89.1 The Bash for Gibson Southern Titans football.
Thanks for listening to the Nick Hart Show on 89.1 The Bash. Brought to you by the Gibson Southern Football Boosters, including A&B Logistics, LLC, A&T Concrete Supply, Absolute Custom Machine, LLC, Angermeyer Electric, Brian Stevens Homes, Davis Brothers, Daylight Land Management, Daywig Meats, Dillback Properties, Diversified Instruments, Du Bois County Garage Doors, Duke Energy, ERA First Advantage, Rodney Langford, First Rate Real Estate, Kent Kleiman, Foster Construction, Ryman Land Service LLC, by Fort Branch Car Wash, Gady Oil, the grandparents of Owen O'Neill, Grassmaster Sod Farms, Hobstadt Family Dentistry LLC, Hobstadt Summerfest, Heritage Petroleum LLC, Hillside Gardens, HMC Gears, Image Inks, in memory of Darwin and Eric Callis, in memory of Zach Bailey, Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, Nathan Belote, Jackson Seed Service, Jarbo Tax Service, JJ's Concrete Construction LLC, JMCO Technologies, Johnson Commercial Mowing Incorporated, K&K Excavating Incorporated, Casey Fuquay State Farm Agent, Kathy Solomon Photography, P Construction Incorporated, Kissel Wagner Survey LLC, by Kirkwood Family Dentistry, Little Titans Daycare, Little Miracles Learning Center, Lowry Ag Company LLC, by Marcus Jungan State Farm Insurance, Melcor Custom Cabinets, MyTech Systems, by Murphy's Stump and Grind LLC, National Vet Help, Owensville Auto Body, Parker Excavating, by Perfect Climate Heating, Air and Plumbing, Pole Concrete Construction, Prodigy Mold and Tool Incorporated, Pro Rehab, Rawhide Golf Supplies LLC, Rooted in Him, Sandy's Pizza and Mini Storage, Shearer Monument Works, by Scotty's Lawn Equipment, by Senior Tequila, Solman Family Farms LLC, South Gibson Titan Lacrosse, Steve Faulkner Chevrolet, by Stodgel Funeral Home, by Tai Chow, The Brass Ring, Titan Construction, TYFL, the Titan Youth Football League, by United Fidelity Bank, Value Built Homes, Bernardo Construction, Vomac Truck Sales and Service Incorporated, by We Simply Clean LLC, and by Young's Auto Body. The Nick Hart Show, a special sports production of the Wabash Valley College Radio, TV, and Digital Media Department, and 89.1 The Bash.